Hello, welcome to another tonalist landscape oil painting demonstration. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy. And the painting I'm bringing you today is called Through the Woods. It's an 8x14. I finished it this last week. And I'm real happy with it. Hopefully you'll enjoy watching me put it together, and we'll see if we can give you a little bit insight and some tips along the way. So my underpainting color here is a modified version of Burn Umber. It's Burn Umber modified with Perylene Black, excuse me, Winsor Newton Perylene Black. It's a nice to kind of balance out some of those more reddish tendencies of the Burn Umber. I like Burn Umber for underpainting because it dries quite quickly. On a hot day, you could do an underpainting in the morning, and that painting's dry in the afternoon, late afternoon. I do use quick drying oil, by the way, Archival Oils brand, odorless lean. Sometimes I get questions on that. And it pretty much acts like a linseed oil, except it does speed up the drying time, similar to something like Liquin. I think it's important to do an underpainting. If you haven't tried that as a part of your process, you might really want to give it a go, because what's great about underpainting is that, first of all, you can't just copy that photo reference. Maybe you've been thinking you can. I know at one point, very early on, not the earliest on. The earliest on, I had it right. I was doing something very much like this, just doing a drawing slash underpainting. But for a little while, I had this, I thought, clever idea that I would use a projector and project the photos onto the board, and so many bad paintings came from that. It's not even funny. You can't do that. That's not how you make paintings. So you need to make changes. You need to evaluate everything that goes into your painting, everything in the reference. For example, in one sec we're going to draw these little mountains. There were 3 mountains in the reference image, which, by the way, you can see in the members area, along with every video in the members area has shows you the reference and the initial color mixing session. There was 3 mountains, and they were way off to our right side of that area and slanting way down, creating sort of a compositional little cul-de-sac. And composition is one of the reasons why you need to spend some time with the underpainting, because it allows you to just focus on things like composition, very basic values, and just kind of figuring out where you're going to want to put stuff and getting a good idea. They typically don't take that long, depending on the complexity of the scene. Sometimes that's the other thing. If you want to if, say, you've got something that's very complex, like I've done a few paintings recently, had a lot of very involved rock shapes and forms that I had to work out, figure out how to simplify them, really. You can do a lot of that in the underpainting, and it'll mean that in the regular color portion of the painting, you can be a lot fresher in your interpretation. And being fresh is where it's at with painting. If you're not going with fairly fresh and immediate sorts of strokes and ways of rendering and showing the things you're painting, you have the opposite, which is tight. And when it's tight, it's not very comfortable for people to look at, and a lot of lay people won't be able to tell you, even a lot of other artists won't be able to tell you particularly why they don't like the painting. In fact, you're lucky if they're actually telling you they don't like your painting. That's pretty infrequent. Usually people will just go, "Oh, that's nice," or something along those lines. But Uncle Mike's here to help you, and I am telling you, your overworked, overwrought bits in your paintings are the undoing of your painting. Any area of your painting that's been overworked calls undue attention to itself, and it just isn't a good way to go. Now, that said, you're going to do some of that. You got to work your way through it. So don't get immobilized by this advice, but keep it in your back pocket. Keep it in mind. It's because it's true. Okay, so you're better off with a fresh and immediate rendition of the image than your big struggle attempt to work something out, and overwrought, over-rendered aspects that people are. It's going to. What it does is it tightens it. Not only did you tighten up when you were doing it, but it tightens them up as they are taking in the image. And you really don't want that. You want the whole scene to just go in like butter, just one smooth thing, and then they can actually scan and appreciate various aspects of the painting. But the idea is that you are now sorry for this haze that you're seeing. It's short-lived. It isn't for the whole painting. I was developing some weird, it's been so rainy out here, I was developing a little bit of odd condensation on the inside of the video camera lens. Really a drag. It's never happened before, and since I don't know how many years, I'm not going to do the math right now, but since 2014 when I first started recording. So that was really awesome and wonderful. But anyway, hey, you know what, we got an ad for the book coming up. We're going to talk some more right after. But I've got lots of orders for the book this week, and I really appreciate that, especially since I just spent a lot of money on my third printing. Don't get excited though. The print runs are only 50 books at a time. They're quite expensive due to the short run. But what is gratifying is that they're getting out into people's hands, and the information inside is being made available to people in the world, all over the world. I've shipped it to lots of countries, and it's gratifying. So if you're interested, $60 US. I know that's a bit steep, but a large portion of that is going for, first of all, the printing, and second of all, the international shipping. And I'm not crying about it. I'm happy to get it into your hands, and it's been a really positive blessing in my life, and hopefully it will be in yours too. So getting back to the painting, so you've heard me talk about the tightness thing before, but I really want to talk about here is like the challenge in this painting is the greens. And now I have had paintings where I have gotten more extensive with the array of different greens. I've done more modulating in the past. But what I did here was like you see me, first of all, I went in over the underpainting with a bit of black, and mostly black. It was mixed in with some a little bit of that burn umber, and maybe even a little bit of that perylene, and a little bit of alizarin crimson. I remember doing that because I wanted kind of a coolness to the black without that dead sort of coldness that you get from the black alone. And but you want to lay down that black bit first, because the shadows are always underneath the other shapes and things. Things like this are covered in my book pretty extensively. But then from there, on our left side, I started working in the cool, darker greens. And one of the things I did in this was, it was almost a bit of an artifact from the photography, but I put a little extra blue in there. So sometimes you'll notice that things go real blue on the edges of a video still or a photo. That's an artifact of the camera lens. But in this case, I incorporated it as part of the painting. Now I want to talk a little bit about these mountains. You have not seen me paint mountains before in this channel because I'm not that big a fan of painting mountains. So, but I'm real happy with the way these came out. Like I said, it was 3 kind of weird ones that were slanted. I made it 2, but what I did there, and that's what I wanted to kind of pass on to you, is that I pulled information from the reference that I applied to the armature of my underpainting, okay? And that's the sort of approach you want to take. You want to pull information, colors, and ideas from the reference, but don't try and slavishly copy the reference. It's a giant waste of time, and would just make for bad painting. So the sooner you learn that, the sooner you stop doing it. The happier everyone that has to look at your work is going to be, and the happier you'll be. You're better off taking huge liberties, just throwing things out the window. That said, don't hesitate to maybe do a bunch of bad paintings where you slavishly copy the reference. In my view, your time might be better spent making slavish copies of masterworks instead. you know, because those aren't going to be something you're going to be as inclined to sell. And I think that's a great way to learn. Frankly, if you're going to sit there and get all tweaky, you may as well do it trying to figure out how a master worked out something, as opposed to a photo, because you might think the photos are great, and photos are a wonderful thing, but photos just capture everything that's there, both good, bad, and ugly, you know. Whereas with a masterwork, at least if you're slavishly copying some aspect or details of it, you know that the master he is a master, so he already worked out, he already pre-digested the reference, whatever reference he was using. In most cases, it might have been a model or a sketch he had, or reality itself, you know, in some way, shape, or form. Hey. Anyway, get back into the greens. That bit of grass alongside the road, I had a kind of a coolness to it as well. I brought in a little bit of gray there in a subtle way. Don't hesitate. Like one of the colors on my palette is and you'll see me lift it up once in a while. Way off on our lower left-hand side is Mike's Gray. That's a mixture of lamp or ivory black and a titanium white. Actually, I use a real cheap titanium white that I've had a tube up for a while, just to use it up and get rid of it, and because it's not super opaque either. And that gray you get with mixing the black and white is a very cool gray, very handy for a lot of uses in your painting. I got the idea for that from a book by Kevin McPherson, where he was always on about how he didn't like to use black, but he got these tubes of gray from Gamblin that they're like marked as a percentage of gray they are, which is 50% or 40% or 60%. And lo and behold, those tubes of gray had black in them. So he really was sneakily using black as a part of his process. We got a minute left. I'm just going to talk about black. You can do a lot without black. A lot of artists do. I like black, and frankly, it's the cornerstone of my green mixture, which is always on my palette, which is called Mike's Green, and that's acrylite yellow, which is a lot of times you'll see it. I'm at my home office. I don't know the code for it, but I want to say, I won't even guess. I don't want to throw you off. But a lot of the cheaper paints are marked as cad yellow hue. It's acrylite, and the Gamblin brand is called Hansa yellow. It looks the same color as cad yellow, but it has about roughly half or even less of the opacity of the cad yellow. So that makes for a much better green mixture. When you mix the black with the cad yellow, you could do that in a limited palette scenario, and it does work, but it's a little more chalky, and so for that reason. But that is my main green. That's the green I slap down. I'll either add burnt sienna to it, or add alizarin crimson to it for the darks, or I add orange to it for the lights, or I add phthalo green to it to make really a nice cool green. Now, if I tried to make a nice cool green with nothing but phthalo, I'm going to be throwing everything but the kitchen sink in there, because that phthalo green looks synthetic as. It looks really fake. Anyway, pretty close to the end of the video, and I really appreciate you coming here and hanging out. Leave me a comment if you enjoyed this video. I'd love to hear from you. Also, hit the like button. I always forget, but people say YouTube will put this in front of people that don't know about my channel yet, so that'd be good. Also, if you have any financial resources, consider buying a painting or sending me a donation, because I'm doing this for a living and it really helps. Anyway, until I come back with another video for your edification and enjoyment, do me a favor, do me a solid. Take good care of yourself, your family, all your loved ones. Stay out of trouble, and God bless you and your family.